We're looking down over the view. It's a hazy morning. Sunrise was about 20 minutes ago, and we're overlooking the Blue Mountain Village, Georgian Bay, and the town of Collingwood, Ontario. A couple of things we're doing today. Oh, by the way, I did get the drone up earlier this morning for the sunrise down in the town of Collingwood, and it was a pretty sunrise. Big orange ball in the sky. I just felt compelled to pop up the drone and capture some footage of that. So I'm going to show you that footage probably right now. But anyhow, today we're on the back roads, the country roads here in Ontario. We're photographing the country roads and waterfalls. So that's what we're looking at today. Back roads, country roads, and waterfalls. Hey, it's Gary here with Gary Clayton Photography. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's go. Let's see what we can find today. Okay, so just traveling along this country road, and the country road I'm on right now is 119 in Grey County here in central Ontario. I came across this little pond just below me here. Now, the little pond, I'll show you a little bit better on the GoPro. We are going to go down there in a moment. But there's a small pond, a couple of interesting trees, a harvested wheat field. And I thought to myself, you know what? Right now I'm pointing pretty much to the north. The sun is at 90-degree angle to me from the east, rising. It's about 8 a.m. now in the morning, so the sun is well on its way up. But down where I'm thinking of putting myself, there is some shade. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to go down there and I'm going to see if I can grab myself an image. Now, obviously, I realize this location isn't the most spectacular location a person's ever going to find. Of course not. But you know, it's interesting. It's got character. It's real. It's here. So yeah, we're going to grab some gear. We're going to head down there and we're going to see what we can find. And we're going to see what kind of composition we can find. Something else I'm trying out today, by the way. I picked myself up quite often when I'm out hiking trails and stuff, which I do all the time. I'm going to be out there later on today exploring some new trails. I carry with me a little pocket camera sometimes. I just picked this little XP. It's a Fujifilm XP 130 up yesterday. In Canada, Canadian dollars with taxes and so on, was around 240 Canadian dollars. It's tough, it's hardy, it's waterproof to like 65 feet, which is great. But you know what? I'm trying it out today. I'm going to grab one or two images with that camera today, and I'll probably pop those up and identify them as taken with that camera. And we'll have a look and just see what it can do. But anyhow, like I said, let's get some gear. Let's go on down there. Let's see if we can find a composition. Okay, so we're in the bulrushes and the reeds and weeds along the side of this little pond here. We're set up on the tripod. Today I'm using my Canon 5D Mark II. I've got my 28 to 135mm lens on there. So we have a composition. This is essentially what we're looking at right here. This is our composition, as you can see through the GoPro right now. My settings right this minute, I'm still using just my 28 to 135mm lens. I have no polarizer on there right now. I have no ND filters on there right now. I just have the HUD. The sun is 90 degrees to my right from the east, of course. So I'm just trying to control any kind of lens flare with that, with the hood. My settings. Well, f8 ISO 100 is giving me a shutter speed of 1/100th of a second. Let's take that shot. 2-second timer. There's the shot. Now, one thing I've noticed is the bulrush leaves, or the bulrushes if you will, in front of my lens, they are moving. I don't want them to necessarily be blurred. I'd like them to be sharp. So, at an ISO of 100, it's giving me 1/100th of a second. Is that enough to keep those bulrushes sharp? Who knows? Can we even see them in the image? I've no idea. But I am going to change my ISO up to 200. This is now going to give me a shutter speed of 1/200th of a second. All other settings the same. Taking my shot, 2-second timer. There's my shot again. So now I went from a 1/100th of a second to a 200th of a second simply by changing my ISO from 100 to 200. Hey, let's see what happens with that. If we got anything out of those two particular shots, we'll pop one of those up right now. So there you go. Now, as you can see, on the body of water itself, or on the pond, we are getting some reflections. We're getting some pretty reflections, actually. There's a nice tree reflection in there, but we're also getting some glare. So now I'm going to attach the polarizer to the lens. Let's see what difference the polarizer will make for us today. Okay, so right now we've attached the circular polarizer to the lens. And I did put the hood back on to help control any lens flare. One thing to notice, with maximum polarization on your polarization filter, you should drop in light between 1 to 2 stops of light. Having said that, my shutter speed should be slower than it was before to allow the same amount of light to come in. But it took me about 15 minutes of messing around to change the filter since I was speaking to you last and since we last took those images. Let me just see what the settings are right now. So right now I'm actually showing at still ISO 200 at f8. I'm actually showing a shutter speed of 1/250th of a second. Oh, just a second here. That doesn't seem to make any sense, because if we just reduce the light by 1 to 2 stops by applying the circular polarizing filter, how come the shutter speed is now even faster by 1/50th of a second than it was before? Before we had a 200th of a second, now we have a 2/50th of a second. Well, first of all, let's just take that shot. Depress the shutter, 2-second timer. There's my shot. And to answer our little question, in the 15 or 20 minutes or so since we took the first shot, the sun has continued to rise. Now we're in much, much more bright sun than we were 15 or 20 minutes ago. Don't forget, now it's about 8:20, 8:30 a.m. So the sun is rising, it's getting brighter. We're getting more light and more light consistently as the sun continues to rise. So that answers that particular question. Okay, let's take one more shot like that. 2-second timer. There's our shot. Now, this is great and I'm liking it at 28mm, but I want to go a little wider. So we're just going to stop for a moment. We're going to change lenses. I'm going from my 28 to 135 to my 17 to 40mm wider lens. Let's set that up. Let's see what we can do with that. Okay, so we're reset up with the 17 to 40mm lens. Now I have a focal length of 24mm. A little bit wider than I was before. This is an f4 consistent lens, which is great. Love this lens. It's one of the L series lens, the least expensive of the Canon L series lenses, but I do like this lens, although I do find it a little soft at times. But that could be my technique, not necessarily the lens. So yeah, that's work in progress. Okay, so now settings the same, ISO 200, f8, focal length of 24mm. Let's take that shot. 2-second timer. Now, one thing I noticed, again, it continues to get brighter. The sun continues to rise. And one thing I noticed was we now have a shutter speed of 1/640th of a second. Way faster than I particularly need, but we do still have the ISO set on 200. So let's take that ISO now back to 100. Let's set that. Let's see what we get now for a shutter speed. With ideally the ISO at 100. It now gives us 1/320th of a second. Hey, that's what it's supposed to give us. 2-second timer, take the shot. There it is. Okay. So now, with the 17 to 40 mm lens, we did just go ahead and set up with a circular polarizing filter on that particular lens, which is a 77 mm thread. I did put the hood back on. I have maximum polarization. Now, as the light is starting to stay a little more constant as the sun has got a little higher, but it's a little more constant now. There's not as much increase in brightness of light now that the sun is much higher in the sky. The light is remaining relatively constant. So this indeed, at the settings we have, this indeed did reduce our shutter speed quite drastically. So it did take it down to 1/100th of a second. So you remember a moment ago we were at 320th of a second, but we did apply that polarizing filter. We have a 2-second timer. Let's take the shot. There's the shot at 100th of a second. Let's take our ISO back to 200. It's now back to 200. This is now giving us a shutter speed of 1/200th of a second, which is pretty much where we'd expect it to be with that ISO change. Depress the shutter, 2-second timer. There's my shot there. Hey, you know what? Lots of fun, interesting location, thoroughly enjoying it. I'm actually going to recompose the composition, and I'm going to set up in a vertical or portrait orientation. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now, as you can see, vertical or portrait orientation, all things being equal, all settings the same, slightly different composition. Depress the shutter, 2-second timer. There's my shot. Hey, like I said, lots of fun. I'm going to pack this gear up, take it back to the car. But you know what? I think I'll pop up the drone here and let's have a look at some aerial footage of this place. Then we're going to carry on down the road to another location that I'm aware of. Let's go. We've just started the trail on the short hike down to the viewing point to Eugenia Falls. In the background, you may be able to hear the Whitewater Rapids kind of rushing down the river. There hasn't been much rain here at all summer. So the falls are low, the river is low. We've been here before. We were here about 2 weeks ago. If you recall the video that we popped up there at Eugenia Falls. This is one of the falls that we want to look at today. Today we want to look at Eugenia Falls, and we also want to head on down the roads to a falls that we've never been to before, called Hogs Falls. So that's the two places we're going to look at. So yeah, here we are. We're along the trail. This is actually part of the Bruce Trail, by the way. Earlier this morning, probably 20 kilometers away from here, again, we're traveling in the car today, we were at another part of the Bruce Trail. That's where we put the drone up this morning to see sunrise and so on. But anyhow, we're going to head down the trail. We're going to get to a viewing point where we can actually set up and maybe photograph the waterfalls. So let's see how we make out here. Okay, so we're set up on the tripod. Let's just take a look at the falls themselves. Now through the trees, this is the view we've got of the falls. Again, I'm using my GoPro Hero 5 Black, so it's really difficult for me to zoom in and bring these falls closer. Once I do get to my mirrorless Canon M6 or M50 for my vlogging, I would be able to bring that in closer and zoom in now so you could get a closer look. But with this particular camera, I can't do that. Okay, so we're set up on the tripod again, my Canon 5D Mark II, my 28 to 135mm lens. I've got an f/25 ISO 100. It's giving me a shutter speed of about 1.5 seconds. I have a polarizer on there. I have one ND filter on there, which is a 0.4 or a 6-stop ND filter. 2-second timer. And there's my shot. Now at 1.5 seconds, does that slow down the water enough to give me that silky look? Hey, we'll know better when we see. I would like to slow things down a little bit more. How can I do that? Well, this is the only ND filter I have. I have graduated LG filters, and that would help with the bright trees in the background. I have my polarizer on there, so that's giving me 1 to 2 stops of less light. I can also go to my f-stop, which I don't really want to go any higher, but I'm going to just take it up to f29, and that's going to give me now 2 seconds, 2-second shutter speed, 2-second timer. There's that shot right there. You know what I'm going to do next? Next, I'm going to set up vertically and get a vertical orientation or portrait orientation of these falls. Let's set up. And okay, just a minor adjustment, and again a 2-second timer. There's my shot. You know what? We're going to just change that focal length a little bit. Let's just go back to live view for a moment. That doesn't make any difference because of that ND filter. So let's just take that composition or that focal length out. So we're now going out to 70mm on the focal length. We'll just take that shot. Again, 2-second timer. And there's my shot again. Looks good. Hey, we're going to pack up from here. We're going to head back to the car. We're going to mosey on down or head down the road to the Hogs Falls. That'll be our next and final destination for the day. Never been there before, so that's going to be really interesting. Let's go. Okay, so we arrived at the parking area for the Hogs Falls. Again, never been to this location before. There's not a great deal of information, although there is a map posted. So it appears to me that the Hogs Falls could be down this trail. Could be 1 or 2 kilometers though, I'm just not sure. So you know what? We're going to head down this trail. We're going to see what we can find. Hey, let's get going. Let's see what we can find down here. See if it looks like where we want to be. Okay. So yeah, after about a 10-minute hike or so, we did make it to the Hogs Falls. It was actually less than 10 minutes, but we didn't know where we were going, so it took me a little bit longer. So there you can see the falls below us. And we're just going to make our way down to kind of the riverbed. Down here, you see the river along here. And we're going to find an area that's going to give us a composition that we can work with. So let's get down there and see what happens. Okay, so we got down to the falls, and it's great. It's a lot of fun, it's exciting. And we did manage to get a couple of pictures, capture a couple of images just before this happened. Yep, the tourists arrived. But you know what? Looking at the backdrop of those falls, those nice green trees up there, you know what that will look like in the fall time when those trees are all golden and browns and reds and yellows. Would look absolutely amazing. So even though we did manage to get a couple of shots today, lots of tourists showed up, which is fine. It's for everybody. But we're definitely coming back to this location. We're going to come back here in the fall. Hi, what's your name? Chantel. Chantel? Yeah. Say hi, Chantel. The whole world's watching you right now. What's your name? Hi, Kenzie. Hi, Kenzie. Wave. Awesome. So yeah, hey, it's Gary here with Gary Clayton Photography. We're going to head back to the studio now. We've got more work to do today, but we are going to download all these images from today into Lightroom. We're going to see what we've got. And you know what? Like always, let's sit back with a cup of coffee. Let's relax. Let's take a look at today's images. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.